All right, welcome back. Today we're kind of shifting gears. We're diving into something a bit different, into the world of, well, local folklore.
Specifically Thai folklore.
Exactly. We're focusing on the Thonburi area of Bangkok, actually going back over 100 years. We've got some really specific, quite chilling stories linked to a famous temple there.
And these aren't just, generic ghost stories you might find anywhere. These are really rooted in that particular place, stories passed down.
Yeah, we heard about them from a listener, actually. Things their family and older residents shared. So it's a chance to explore some local legends that honestly aren't widely known.
Which is always fascinating. Gives you a different kind of insight.
Totally. So what we want to do today is really get into these accounts, understand the stories themselves, the creatures or entities described.
And maybe what they tell us about the people who lived there back then. Their beliefs, their fears, what life was like.
Right. It's history, but through this really spooky lens. I'm actually quite excited to unpack these.
Folklore often holds these unique keys to understanding the past, doesn't it? The human experience reflected in these narratives. They're more than just scary tales.
Definitely cultural artifacts. Okay, so let's start with the first one. It's about an old man, Tat Shui. He lived near this big temple in Thonburi.
And you have to picture this setting. Over a century ago, Thonburi. Very different. Quiet.
Incredibly dark at night, yeah. People mostly stayed home after sunset, unless they absolutely had to go out. Maybe moonlight to see by, perhaps a lamp if you were fortunate.
No street lights, none of the modern city glow. That kind of deep darkness changes your perception of things.
Absolutely. Makes the shadows feel deeper, maybe. Anyway, Tat Shui, he liked his drink.
A common detail in these old stories sometimes.
It seems so. So one day he gets lucky, wins some money on the old lottery, the Huai Kor Kor.
Ah, right. That was a big thing back then.
Yeah. So with his winnings, he decides to celebrate. Goes across the river to Phranakan, stays out really late drinking, past midnight.
Which, like you said, was unusual. Most folks would be long asleep. Traveling alone late at night wasn't common.
Right. So he finally heads back, gets a boat to the temple pier. It's around midnight, and it's flood season. Nam Tuam, the water's high, covering the paths.
Another key detail, the flood season changes everything.
But the moon was bright, waxing moon apparently, so there was light. He gets off the boat, starts wading along the path by the temple wall. He's feeling good, singing a bit, smoking his rolling tobacco, the bijak.
So walking home, maybe a little unsteady?
Probably. Then he hears it, splashing sounds behind him, someone else walking through the water.
Okay.
At first, no big deal, but then this voice calls out, a really deep, cold-sounding voice. It asks him, Uncle, can I get a light for my bijak? Ooh, okay, even just the description of the voice sets a mood.
Right. Tat Shui, maybe a bit drunk, doesn't think too much of it initially. He turns, offers his lit tobacco. He sees the person asking is completely hooded, can't see their face at all, even with the moonlight.
Just shape, really. Pretty much. He gives the light, turns back, starts walking again.
Still not alarmed, just interacting.
Yeah, maybe the alcohol helped there, but after maybe 4 or 5 steps, he realizes the splashing behind him stopped. Completely silent back there.
Huh. They didn't follow.
No. He wonders why they're just standing there in the water. He pauses, maybe feeling a bit uneasy now, but doesn't turn around right away. And then this huge black shadow just sweeps over him, blocks out the moonlight entirely for a second.
Whoa.
His first thought, a massive bird flying low. So he looks up.
And it wasn't a bird.
Not even close. What he saw looming way, way above him was a foot. A gigantic, human-like foot. Hundreds of times bigger than normal, lifting up over his head.
A giant foot.
Yeah, and looking further up, he sees it belongs to that hooded figure he just gave a light to. Except now, the figure is impossibly tall and thin, stretching way up into the sky. Taller, the story goes, than the temple's main pagoda.
Ah, okay. That sounds exactly like a preet. P-R-E-T. Yeah, in Thai folklore, they're a type of hungry ghost. Often depicted as monstrously tall, incredibly thin, sometimes with tiny mouths representing bad karma, maybe greed or disrespect towards parents or monks in a past life. Seeing one near a temple is pretty classic imagery they're drawn there, perhaps seeking merit or bound by their past actions.
Oh. Okay, so Tat Shui sees this preet towering over him.
Instant sobriety, I imagine.
Oh, completely. Utter terror. He just screamed, apparently gibberish, just pure fear, and ran. Scrambled through the water towards the temple entrance and just collapsed there. Passed out cold.
A profoundly terrifying encounter. Did it change him?
The story says it did. Scared him straight, you could say. He stopped going across the river for late-night drinks, stuck to places closer to home, and definitely avoided that path by the temple wall after dark.
That giant foot detail is striking, though. Really emphasizes the scale and the otherness.
Yeah, it really sticks with you. So that's the Preet. But the listener said Chui had another encounter years later that people thought was even scarier.
Really? Scarier than a giant ghost stepping over you?
Apparently so. This also happened during flood season.
Seems to be a theme. The high water changes the environment, makes things possible.
Maybe. This time it involved huge log rafts. Back then logs from up north were floated down river for sawmills in Bangkok.
Right, massive rafts. They'd moor them along the bank.
Exactly. Dozens of them were tied up near the temple. So Tachui, being a keen fisherman, decides this is a good spot. He takes a little boat out at night, ties it to the very end of the rafts, way out from the pier, almost mid-river.
Okay, so he's quite isolated out there.
Very. He's waiting for the slack tide, nam tide, when the water's still. Best time for fishing, apparently.
Makes sense.
But as he's waiting, he notices something's off. It's dead quiet. Unnaturally quiet. No crickets, no frogs. Not even the sound of fish jumping. Just silence.
That's often a bad sign in these stories, isn't it? That unnatural quiet.
Feels like it. He starts to feel really uneasy. Then, bang! His fishing rod gets pulled down hard. Violently. Feels like a huge fish.
Some action finally.
He starts fighting it, struggling with the line, but then, just as suddenly, the line goes completely slack.
Oh, lost it.
He reels it in. The bait is totally untouched.
Weird, okay.
This happens again and again. Strong pull feels massive then. Nothing. Bait's still there. He's getting frustrated now and suspicious.
Yeah, that's not normal fish behavior. Something's messing with him.
That's what he thinks. He loses his temper and just yells out into the night, "You damned ghost, stop messing with me!" Something like, "I fiha, you langu you die."
Oh dear. Challenging it directly, probably not the best move.
Definitely not, because immediately after he shouts that, his little boat, tied to the raft, just lurches violently to one side, like something heavy is trying to climb in.
Oh no.
He looks over in the light of his gas lamp and he sees it, scrambling up the side of the boat. And the description, it's way worse than the Preet. He called it more like a monster, a demon.
Okay, what did it look like? The source was quite detailed here, wasn't it?
Very. It had long, stringy black hair. Its face was bloated. Pale, greeny-white skin like a body that's been in the water way too long. Big, round, fish-like eyes. No eyelids, no real nose, maybe just holes. And its mouth was thick-lipped, full of tiny, sharp teeth. And the hands gripping his boat, they weren't human, they were like hawk's talons or chicken feet. Black, long, sharp claws.
That is horrifyingly specific. That combination of features sounds like a Phi-Fray. Phiprai.
Hey, Frey, what's that?
They're another type of spirit in Thai folklore, specifically water spirits, often associated with people who drowned, especially in rivers or canals. They can be quite malevolent, predatory even.
That fits, a water spirit.
And the detail about it coming with the logs from the north,
Yeah.
that also fits. There's a strong belief that spirits can become attached to places or even objects related to their death. The logs floated down a river could easily, in this belief system, carry a spirit tied to them from upstream.
That makes a horrible kind of sense. Okay, so Tachui sees this thing climbing into his boat.
He must have lost it.
Completely. More terrified than with the Preet, he screams, scrambles out of the boat onto the log raft, somehow manages to run across the logs, which must have been unsteady, all the way back to the temple pier.
Using the rafts as a bridge back? Lucky they were there.
Incredibly lucky. He runs straight into the temple grounds, finds a monk named Frejorn, wakes him up, terrified, asks to stay the night.
Seeking sanctuary, the temple as a safe haven.
The next morning, he's still shaken. He goes to check his boat. It's still there, tied up, but the side where the creature grabbed it, covered in deep black claw marks.
Whoa. Physical evidence, that's chilling.
He was so scared he couldn't even row it home. Got some temple boys to carry it for him.
I don't blame him.
He told the head monk, Luampur, everything. The monk apparently did some meditation, Nangting Nai, to look into it.
Using insight meditation to perceive things beyond the ordinary.
Right. And he confirmed it. Phi Fry came with the logs from the north. And the monk added this awful detail. This particular spirit had been drowning children who played near the logs further up the river, basically preying on people along the way.
Good grief. So it wasn't just messing with him, it was genuinely dangerous.
Oh.
Predator.
Exactly. The monk performed some rituals, Sikat Winyan to contain it, and Jiren Fei Bungsikan, a merit-making ceremony trying to sort of appease it or send it on its way.
Dealing with a spiritual disturbance through traditional means.
After that, Ta Chui swore off night fishing for months. When he did start again, it was daytime only, and close to the pier.
Safer bet.
The story spread like wildfire, of course. People said his cursing called the ghost, that his bait attracted more than just found that night, and everyone agreed if his boat had capsized, that Fry would have dragged him under.
Another powerful localized legend tied to the river and its perceived dangers.
Okay, so we've had the Preet by the wall, the Phi Free on the river. Let's move forward now, about 60 years after Ta Chui's time. This story comes from our listener, Krujo, about their mother.
Right, so this is moving into maybe the mid to late 20th century. Still a while ago, but closer.
Yeah. Krujo's mother lived in Thonburi, but worked over in Sathorn. Commuted by boat and bus. And even then, during flood season, wading through calf-high water in Thonburi streets was still a thing.
The floods persist as a backdrop.
Her walk home from the temple pier involved a specific path, past a garden, houses, the temple front, then this area called the corpse storage warehouse along the wall, past a big Bodhi tree to get home.
Okay, that name stands out, corpse storage warehouse.
Yeah. By day, the path was fine, but at night, it was known for being really eerie, deserted, lots of ghost stories, especially centered around that warehouse area.
So what exactly was that area? The source clarified it wasn't like a formal morgue, right?
No, not at all. Apparently, it was just a big, empty lot near the temple's crematorium, the Maru. The police back then didn't have much space at their stations, so if there was a major accident, like at least 2 deaths, they'd tow the wrecked vehicles, cars, buses, whatever, and just park them in this empty lot by the temple. The monks allowed it.
Ah, I see. A makeshift impound lot for vehicles involved in fatal accidents.
Right next to the crematorium.
Exactly. And there had been one particularly horrific accident. A big bus collided head-on with a truck. Everyone on the bus died. That wrecked bus was stored in this lot.
Okay, that explains the reputation. That ties into a very common belief worldwide, doesn't it? Spirits lingering at crash sites or where the wreckage is kept. Violent, sudden death is often thought to create that kind of spiritual echo.
Makes total sense why that spot felt haunted. So one night, Krujo's mother has a late meeting, then a reunion. It gets really late. Friends told her, just stay over, knowing about her creepy walk home.
Sensible advice.
But she was worried about her kid, Krujo, who was young then, felt she had to get back, so she decides to go home alone. That protective instinct kicking in.
She gets a ride back across the river in a villager's boat, since the regular ferry stopped. It starts raining as she reaches the temple pier, turns into a real downpour, so she waits under shelter for maybe 10 minutes for it to ease up a bit.
Setting the scene again. Rain, late night, eerie path.
She starts walking her usual route. Dim light, rain still falling. The whole temple area is silent except for the rain. Then, as she's passing that corpse storage warehouse area near the crematorium, she hears it. 3 loud, distinct metallic bangs. Tung, tung.
Tongue, sharp sounds, unsettling.
She looks over towards the sound, towards where the wrecked vehicles were kept, and she sees the old bus, the one from the fatal accident. It's dark, it's raining, but she sees it clearly, and she sees people. Dozens of people on the bus and all around it.
Dozens. Not just 1 or 2 figures.
No, loads of them. And the way they were moving, she said it was instantly clear they weren't alive. Some were just sitting there. Some were crawling out from under the bus. Some were climbing up the sides like lizards, she said. Others were jumping onto the roof and off again, but with these unnatural, jerky, impossibly high leaps.
Wow. That's a terrifying tableau.
Yeah.
A mass manifestation tied directly to the tragedy in the object.
She just froze. Stood there staring, completely shocked for several seconds. What broke the spell was a flash of lightning that lit everything up for a moment, that snapped her out of it. She turned and just ran. Ran all the way home, terrified.
I can only imagine.
Got home breathless, shaking, needed smelling salts. Had terrible nightmares that night about the accident, seeing the victims.
A really visceral, traumatic experience for her too. Not just seeing ghosts, but the echo of that violence.
The next day, she called work, said she couldn't come in, went straight to the temple to make merit, dedicate it to those spirits she saw, and after that, she never took that shortcut late at night again. Found a longer, maybe safer route.
Understandable. And Krujo mentioned seeing the bus there for years.
Yeah, apparently it sat there for a long time, until temple renovations happened decades later. They finally removed the bus, cleared the lot, and it eventually became a parking area.
And the stories faded.
Yeah, as the physical reminder was gone, and the area got busier, more built up, those specific stories about the ghost bus started to fade, especially among younger people.
Which is often how it goes, isn't it? Urban development, changing landscapes, they can erase the physical triggers for these legends. The stories lose their anchor point.
So, looking back at these three accounts, we've got the Preet by the temple wall during the flood.
Tied to karma in the temple space.
The Phi-Frey in the river, coming with the logs. A water predator.
Linked to drowning, travel, and the dangers of the waterways.
And then the spirits connected to the bus wreck, a site of traumatic death. All in the same vicinity, spanning about a century.
It paints such a rich picture of the localized folklore in that part of Thonburi. You see these distinct types of spirits fitting into the environment, temple, river, accident site. It reflects how people understood unexplained events or processed fear and tragedy.
And how those beliefs were so tied to specific places. The temple wall, the log rafts, that particular empty lot.
Exactly. Folklore is so often place-based. These stories belong to that landscape, that history. They tell you what people in that community feared, respected, maybe warned each other about. It shows a world where the boundary between, the everyday and the supernatural felt much, much thinner than perhaps it does for many of us now.
And it also shows how things change. The parking lot replacing the haunted ground, the stories fading as the place transforms.
Modernization literally paving over the old legends, in a way. But the memories persist, thankfully, through accounts like the ones our listeners shared.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about the places around us? What stories might be hidden just beneath the surface of familiar streets or buildings?
Absolutely. For you listening, maybe take a moment to consider your own area. Are there old corners, undeveloped spots, places with known histories, maybe tragic ones? What forgotten stories might they hold?
How has the history of those places shaped the tales told about them, and what happens when those places change? It's this deep connection between history, the physical place, and these enduring local legends.
A history that echoes, even if faintly, in the stories that survive.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive into Thonburi's lingering legends. Thank you for joining us.